All right, guys, welcome to the last Art History Tuesday session of the year. I can't believe it. This is 32 weeks worth of art history, and we're getting to a pretty common artist that many of you guys know about today based on the forum. I know, I can't believe it. We still have like a whole month of school left, but we are definitely facing the last fully instructional weeks. I just wanted to let you guys know in advance that I'm running an SOL test at a hotel, and I'm having some computers delivered today. It says that it'll come between 12 and 5 p.m. and normally things come late for me, but if I have to pause the recording for a second, it's because I have to answer the door and sign for a whole box of testing computers. So just to let y'all know in advance. This is my favorite class too, guys. I've had so much fun with this, and we're going to talk about an artist today that you guys know a lot about, or at least something about. So I saw that Erin already answered this question. If people watching the recording want to scroll up in the chat box, they can see it. Can an artist share a story of a group of people that he, she, they are not a part of? I don't know. Hopefully they'll give us a second level next year. Because it'd be nice for y'all to get your sequential electives in here. So by this I mean like if you are not a part of a group, can you tell that group's story? Oh, cool. All right, I'll scroll up real quick to the chat and read what you said out loud. For the essential question, I think they could if the group of people said it was all right to do. So if they got permission from the group of people. Okay, and that was Erin's feedback, is to get permission from the group of people. And I asked her, who is that authority of a group of people? And this is a common occurrence that comes up in writing literature, in reporting, as well as art and music and such. You know, we see this in our own pop culture with stars like Iggy Azalea, who got a lot of backlash from the rap and R&B community for her music style and the words she was saying and such, yet she did not stand up for the African American movement, Black Lives Matter, when that started to rise. Like, so she was trying to tell that part of the story culturally, but not helping out in the other end. The person who has the most control of the group, right? That gets pretty nebulous too, though, based on how large the group is, right? The bigger the group is, the harder it is to find an authority person. And this is a huge issue we're facing in art too. It's not uncommon, but I'll try and give a brief case of what I'm talking about. There is an artist who is a white woman. In a couple of years ago, she did a gallery exhibit talking about this famous case that happened in a segregation time, maybe even before then, in which essentially a white woman had an affair with a black man, and she was going to be punished for that because it was illegal at the time and place that she was in the U.S. So she said that the man assaulted her, and he was hanged for that crime. Even though later on she came out saying that it was a consensual and loving relationship, but she didn't want to face any punishment for it. But by putting all the blame on him, she actually ended his life unfairly. And there's this famous, not famous, but it's she was like a mid-level artist who did an art series based on the travesty and the destruction that happened to that man. And a whole lot of backlash from a portion of the African American community in the state that she was in, said that she didn't have a right to tell the story of the African American man, but she should instead have focused on the white woman in that situation. And so this is something that we have to start thinking about as artists. It's like we are allowed to agree and disagree on what stories and perceptions that we tell, for sure. It's pretty sensitive when we get into the areas where we want to share these stories, but they might not be of our culture. Oh no, it could definitely be a current story. Yeah. Like, so, you know, a lot of people tend to do, a lot of people tend to like to talk about eco matters because no one owns the entire planet Earth, so that's a pretty common, like, I should say in air quotes, a safe topic to talk about. Yeah, so we now have like this shared knowledge on Facebook and stuff. That's a good point. And it's just a tricky situation. This is something that's kind of a higher level thought for sure. Just to, as you move higher up into the art world, as you're moving on to your level 2 and making work and making it public, there's going to be the questions that arise of what story should I be telling? What point of view should I be taking in that story? And how should I be telling it? And, you know, not always when someone says you shouldn't share this story is that true. Like, they might be an authority figure, but maybe that's just one point of view that they have. But this is, you know, never a right or wrong question, but something that's kind of ambiguous and something we have to start thinking about now. Yeah, right. For sure. Yeah, so to bring it down to social media levels, like we have all this stuff that we hear, like maybe someone posts a whole Twitter story, right? And what if like the story has like ups and downs, maybe there's 23 tweets in a row or something to tell this story, yet someone else only shares one tweet of that 23 section and makes a comment or an observation without linking the whole Twitter post. Like, do you think that's when they're starting to encroach on sharing a story that's not their own? We see this in our news a lot too, things just blown out of proportion and people not knowing the whole story behind it. And even in our own friend groups and friend circles, you hear gossip go around and maybe it comes across your ears and you hear it about someone that you know or a friend that you know, and you might say, wait a minute, I was there. She didn't say it like that. It didn't look like that. I don't think you should be sharing that story. Okay, cool. So because it's public already, you don't have to worry too much because the readers can fact check it on their own. Cool. So this is just something that we got to start thinking about as artists, what stories that we're sharing, how if we have backed them up. And, you know, I think what you have there is a good solution, like making sure you credit the original writer so that people research it on their own and develop their own opinion. That's a good solution. But it's definitely, this is one of those big, ambiguous, upper-level questions. I used to ask things like this to my AP students, so if it feels like it's a little above the normal, that's okay. It's just a higher-level question. But it's something that we should always think about. Cool. So I'm going to move forward. So this is our image of the day. I see that Elizabeth is away, which is okay. Erin, if you want to take one of these and I'll take the other. We're just going to write down what we think is happening in this picture. All right, and I'll take the other one. It won't let me change my color. Ooh, you already got it for me. Thanks, Elizabeth. Right, so we have in this image here a young child holding an empty, dirty bucket, and his shirt says, "I hate Mondays," and it's clearly worn out and oversized, right? And then if you look around in the background, there's a boy to the left, or I'll say a child to the left, and then two children in the background, and the child to the left doesn't have a shirt on, but the two kids in the background do. So we're seeing a very contrasting image first thing. So what makes you wonder about this piece? Well, that's a good point of view. I just catching up with the chat box over here. What's wrong with Mondays? What is the scene representing? Good questions here. And I hate Mondays too. That quote is on his shirt. It's really bold and apparent too. It's obvious that the artist wants you to look at it. The different colors, right? Yeah, so you're definitely supposed to be looking at that. And there's some contrast here too between his shirt and his situation. It's the beginning of my waking up at 4 a.m. Right. So do you think, looking at this image, that this child, actually knows what day of the week it is or cares about the day in general? No, just from the image we're starting to come up with a story, right? He probably doesn't care that it's Monday, so why would he hate it, right? Who says things? Like, yeah, so this is probably a survival situation. So who does say things like, "I hate Mondays"? Right, so he probably in real life won't say something like, "I hate Mondays." But who do you know that does say things like, "I hate Mondays"? Who would use this quote in their regular language? People who don't like school or work, right? Yeah, that 9 to 5, Monday through Friday grind. I'm pretty sure this child here does not care about the 9 to 5. Does anyone know what this is called? When you complain about something that most of the rest of the world doesn't have to, like, isn't bothered by. It used to have a name that we called it to put it into our complaints into perspective. Complaining, right? It's actually called I'm going to see Elizabeth typing annoying. Yes, a first world problem. Have you heard of that expression before? No. All right, yeah. So this is a good thing to start using in your own language. Yeah, you use it a lot. Okay, great. It helps to put your priorities into check. So a first world problem is complaining that the service on my iPhone isn't fast enough. A first world problem, you guys start to think of and write some versions in the box too. Yeah, complaining that my iPhone isn't fast enough. Complaining at the cost of toilet paper at the store. Or maybe I say, like, my potato chips are too salty, right? These are first world problems. Because essentially, looking back at this image here, do you think that he even is, like, aware of the speed of which my iPhone service has? Would he share that complaint? My computer isn't fast enough. No, yeah, probably not, right? Especially based on this situation, if he's foraging barefoot looking for something, he probably doesn't give a crap about any of my first world problems. And his shirt here is oversized and it's worn out that we're seeing. How would he come by this shirt? I don't have the newest iPhone, right? That's such a good one. How do you think he came by this shirt in the first place? A donation, right? A donation, or there's actually, in a lot of countries that have sweatshop and factory manufacturers, it's known to many people. I remember when I would go to Guatemala a lot, there is an Abercrombie and Fitch manufacturer in Guatemala City, and every time, like, someone messed up on a shirt, it would then be sold for like 1/10 of the price that Abercrombie would sell. So a lot of people will wear shirts that were brand name in the U.S. or something you'd see like at a t-shirt vendor in the street, but there was like something slightly wrong with it. Yeah, right? We're seeing some other places that do that too, for sure, in the U.S. But this is with companies that outsource their labor around the world. This is a common practice too. And so you see things like, if you ever go to other countries, you'll see a lot of people wearing shirts very similar to what you and your family might be wearing. Yeah. But there just might be something slightly wrong with the stitching, even down to the point that walking by you wouldn't notice what was wrong with the stitching. So this shirt is definitely worn out, probably free or close to free, given to the child. And yes, exactly. And so this is really, I like to share this piece because it's very much at the heart of what Banksy is creating. So I've seen a lot of students share Banksy in the forums before. Do you guys know much about him? And I say him in air quotes. No, okay, cool. So Banksy is a famous contemporary British graffiti artist who we do not know his actual identity. Banksy is the tag that they go by. And this artist creates not only work on the street, but also fine artworks and stuff to sell as well. And his fame and notoriety from that tag actually has created a lot of money. And I don't fully know how these transactions happen. But his works are worth a lot because of his anonymity. And as you might guess, there are a lot of fakes out there who pretend to be Banksy and have copied his tag. But they're actually experts now, graffiti artist experts, to prove or disprove if something is actually the artist's work. Which that kind of gives you a level of his, and I say his in quotes, fame. Why would this artist choose to remain anonymous? Yeah, we still don't know who Banksy is. Every April 1st, there's some newspaper out there that says, like, they pull a joke that they have caught Banksy. But they've still remained secretive. And it's not, there's a reason why graffiti artists have a tag, and he's not, by no means is he the only one that's still anonymous. Yeah, right? So they can keep attention on the piece instead of himself. But if the bulk of his work is graffiti and done illegally, can you guys guess what issue would happen if they actually came out into the surface? They would be arrested. Yes, there are hundreds of warrants out for Banksy's arrest that have not been taken down. Right. And that's, that's a huge part of the graffiti culture and the graffiti risk. Artists who have not kept a quiet identity, and some who have and have just been turned in, many of which have served a long amount of jail time. If you choose to pursue this route when you go into college, if you're found out, you will often be kicked out of school and then not invited back to any other art schools with that record. So it's a very big gamble that you play if you're stepping into this realm of graffiti works. But Banksy has gotten so famous that his work is invited. So people open up spaces and walls because his work is worth so much now. And we don't know who Banksy is. We do know that they're British. Yes. Right. That's a practical solution, Elizabeth. Yeah. We know that Banksy works with a collective. There is a question whether or not there is a collective of people. They've released certain information saying that he's right now he's in his 40s and he's a white British man, but we are not actually sure. We think that could also be something to distract the police, as they are always trying to find out who it is. The work that they create is very productive, works very quickly, so we know that there's definitely a group of artists involved, and it's not unusual for when Banksy comes to town, because he does travel around the world, for him to seek out and connect with, and I say him just because that's the information that they released. It's not unusual for him to connect with local graffiti groups and collaborate and work together to unleash his works at a very fast and quiet speed. But both of his works are meant to throw you off and to make you think about your situation in the first world. So he questions our normal life, and a lot of his graffiti does that, and he even makes you think about your own standards of living, your own morals, and who you're following and what you're believing in. Basically, it's a good observation. The graffiti community, from the few people I know who are in it, is a very, very solid group with a strong no snitching policy. And essentially, if you were to turn someone like this guy in, who is considered a hero amongst this graffiti community, you would be essentially disowned by the rest of your community. So the artist community would shun you and turn their backs on you that you were working with. And then, that's another reason why we think Banksy could be a group of people, or they could have given out information that wasn't true. Right, the honor thieves, exactly, the honor thieves. That's put into the best words right there. There is a strong sense of honor amongst the wider crews. And also there's reciprocity too. Like if you tell someone major, there is a high likelihood that the rest of the community will release information about you and what you've been creating or doing. Yes, right? You are not alone. if you guys are interested, there's a very weird, strange, wonderful documentary I'm going to write right here called Exit Through the Gift Shop. It's been around for like about a decade now, and it is about a documentary artist who gets connected with the graffiti community just to eventually meet Banksy. And there's lots of faces that are blurred out, as you might guess, voice alterations and stuff. And he gets so involved with what Banksy is creating that Banksy turns the camera around, and somehow Banksy ends up taking over as the interviewer and starts to interview the original guy. It's a very strange one. But Banksy got to such a level of fame that he even took over a whole museum as well, and that made a famous exhibition. And he is known for sneaking artworks into a museum, like making frames and things and putting sticky tape essentially on the back. And he and his crew will pop artworks up on the walls in the spaces between other artworks. Clever things like that too. Yeah, right. So that documentary is old enough now that you can find it streaming in a lot of places, some places even for free. I don't know quite where it is now, but it's not very difficult to come by. All right. So this next video I have right here, this always gets people really excited. If you want to click on this YouTube link, yeah, you might actually find the whole thing on YouTube. This is a short video about when Banksy was an artist in residence in New York. So if you guys want to watch it, you guys can see here from this video about the sheer amount of volunteer effort that was involved in his artist residency. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the puppet show I always thought was really surprising, in that little bit of nature in the back of the truck. I feel like the video did a good job at showing the works he did that are not traditional graffiti. Yeah, I cannot imagine the level of planning, secretive planning that must be happening. Yeah, I agree. It's, I guess, a less graphic way of talking about the meat packing industry, for sure. Like, as opposed to, like, I would say, like a PETA poster or something. Cool. I'm glad you guys watched this video. Oh, yeah. Well, so what's interesting, in a lot of our older cities in the U.S., there are different districts that used to be, back in the day, an industrialized city would provide for. Yeah. Um, but like, there's a whole section of New York that was meat packing, and Chicago had a way huger portion that was meat packing and stuff, in which literally all the cows, and those were some of the first railroads, all these cows would be shipped in from farms and stuff throughout the U.S., and they would be butchered and packaged for sale. Maybe, right? Who knows? There's so many curious things that we have um, about this person. And just like knowing that there are people inside the van, like, operating or the truck, operating the animal puppets and stuff. It's like a very intensely orchestrated event. Hmm. Good questions. All right, I'm going to move forward here. So how do you think works like this affect the art world? And we can talk about his work in general. Ooh, admiration. Yeah. So all of a sudden, the city becomes your canvas. Like, there's a martyrdom approach here, risking everything just to share your story, or to share these stories. Very true. Great, great observations, guys. And from here, because this is our last session of the year, I believe we're going to start summarizing bigger ideas. The honors question, just to close out our year, is: after this year of art history, what must an artist do to impact the art world? Pure opinion here. This is you thinking about what an artist must do in order to impact this world. We've looked at art since the beginning of time, way back with the Macapanscat pebble. Oh yeah, very big question. Yeah, just say I like it a sentence or something. Make their art stand out. Oh my gosh, you're so true. But that's the ultimate question of how do I make my artwork stand out? And I'll post this online. It takes a real cultural awareness and perhaps a little bit of connections and luck, I would say, to make it stand out with the current tide. I feel like most people who've made work that has impacted the world have rarely made it knowing that they would be impacting the world. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know the true impact that your work will make while you're making it. Which makes it even harder to, I think, answer this question. Almost anything, right? I feel like anytime we do something great, it's very rare that in reality it ends up having a huge impact. But sometimes it's the smallest things we do impact people in the strangest ways. Like, people are like gushing over on how great a sketch you did to prepare for a painting was. And yet your painting gets no focus, no admiration, but this little preparation sketch you did in 30 minutes, people are just like, oh my God, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Yeah, so true. Like, once you do something that makes an impact, what do you do next? How do you get bigger and bigger? So in this slide right here, this is once again your opinion. What styles and processes do you think will last? We'll say for the next 500 years. Ooh, trying to one-up yourself for sure. The only person we really have to compete against in this life is always ourselves. And it's so hard to do that. Ooh. The process of rebellion, or a rebellious style. It's a good observation. I feel just from my own, everything new, I feel just from my own observation, paint will always be a thing. Like, I think it might be like how it is, there's digital painting today, and in photography they even call it light painting. But the process of paint will always exist, but not in necessarily its traditional form. Right? Not like just oil paint or tempera or anything. But it'll find a way to go through. Cool. Give me a check mark if y'all feel good in the slide. I see we have 2 responses, so good. All right. So this is another observation of you guys. What actions do you think will ripple in time? So think here about this being the circle right here, the lake, and say you were to drop a pebble and think about how the ripples extend out. And maybe they're not so dramatic later on, but they're still present. What things do you think an artist does or a society does that continue to ripple out to today? And you can be negative or positive here for sure. We all like to think positive, but in reality, we're still feeling the negative effects of the past today, right? And I'll add it right here, like colonialism. So just thinking how much domination that happened in the past in colonies and taking over, and how we're still feeling the effects of, like, an English ruled society or a French ruled society today here in the U.S. Nationalism, very true. And what does it mean to be American has rippled out to today. Especially, it's always so interesting too to hear about nationalist propaganda and arguments and how much it goes back to the forefathers, how they always bring up the forefathers again. Ooh, ethnic/religious divisions, so true. And I feel like we're going to keep feeling these ripples, for the next 500 years. great observations. And I'll move on to the next slide. Lastly, this is just overall, throughout the course of this year, just thinking, how does art history impact you? How does learning from 20,000 years ago, the Macapane Pebble, to today's Banksy's piece, how do you feel impacted by this? And I am going to turn off the recording as we close this out.